grade school friend of mine posted on Facebook this week the following story. Our 4-year-old daughter got in the car after school last night and said she had a story to tell us. Once upon a time, there were 2 towers, is how it started. You can imagine our shock when she recounted a 4-year-old appropriate version of the events of 9/11 told by her teacher. She said she had tried very hard to remember it so that she could share the story with us. We can remember a lot of stories, even just from this past week. U.S. and Russian leaders worked on a deal to eliminate serious chemical weapons by 2014. St. Francis celebrated 6 months as Pope. A boardwalk fire erased months of rebuilding on the Jersey Shore. William and Kate went against personal protocol of receiving baby gifts, joyfully accepting a painting from a 43-year-old Down syndrome woman that took the woman 6 months to create. Most of all, we remember how 2,978 people and 1 bomb-sniffing dog named Sirius were lost to us, but found by God on September 11th, 2001. I don't often respond to Facebook posts, but I did respond to my friend saying, "Thanks be to God, your daughter has someone in her life who explained what happened in simple, age-appropriate, truthful language." But her grandma, who lives around the block from me as a child and was my Sunday school teacher, disagreed, posted back, "That was 12 years ago. Why tell such a terrible story to a 4-year-old now?" Biblical scholar Alan Culpepper writes, "Parables and myths function in diametrically opposite ways. Myths tell us where we come from, while parables challenge worldviews, expose inadequacies, require us to search for more adequate interpretations of who we are and how we ought to live." We post on Facebook, read a book, recount stories, and we do all of these things for a reason. To remember, to learn, to not make the same mistakes again, to find more adequate interpretations of who we are and how we ought to live. We find in Luke 15 a well-known trilogy of stories, parables of a lost sheep, a lost coin, and a lost son, known better as a prodigal son. Note, our lectionary leaves the 3rd story out of today's mix, perhaps because the first 2 are so perfectly matched, containing identical form and style. First, a question, then a story, being lost and found, a joyful celebration, and finally, as all good stories have, a moral. These are the parables Handel sings about, Blake and Kipling write about, even Mark Twain in Huckleberry Finn writes, "The widow, she cried over me and called me a poor little lamb," and a lot of other names too. If you must tell me the truth, Emily Dickinson writes, give it to me slant so that I can bear it. Jesus always tells the truth, gives it to us slant through the lens of parables so we can bear it. His stories exist not to make us feel warm and fuzzy, but to challenge us. Of course, over time, man and womankind has injected saccharin into these nearly 2,000-year-old parables, imaging sweetness and light, an adorable lamb saved by her master from the big bad wolf. Perseverance through a woman who has the tenacity to spring clean her entire house for one lousy coin. But make no mistake, these parables are theological attacks, divine grenades hurled at Jesus' enemies and us. Remember the context. Jesus has already set his face towards Jerusalem, and true, we know from past weeks the crowds are massing around Jesus, but remember, Jesus is searching as he tells these stories of lost and found too. He's looking to see who among the crowds really gets him, to shrink his numbers by the shock factor. Jesus is preaching really offensive sermons, reminding people living for God means being in a whole new way, ways that challenge worldviews, expose inadequacies. 2 weeks ago, Jesus says when you go to somebody's place for dinner, choose the worst seat in the house. And when you yourself have a dinner, invite the misfits, the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, to be part of your Facebook social circle. Jesus tells us last week, reorder your priorities. Hate father and mother, wife and child. Place them second. Put God first. This trajectory of trying to offend continues today. Pharisees and scribes are grumbling. The Greek verb actually means negative muttering under the breath. So Jesus tells them some stories. A shepherd leaves 99 sheep unprotected in the wilderness to go after one stray. Which one of you, Jesus asks, wouldn't do that? Well, really, Jesus? No one would do that. If you have 100 sheep and you lose one, you don't risk losing the other 99 by going and searching for the one. You cut your loss. You rack it up to the cost of business. A woman turns her house inside out, upside down for one little coin, and after she finds it, she throws a party. Look, honey, I found my car keys. Let's rent a dance hall. Hey, that Barbie doll my daughter lost has reappeared. Let's book a flight to Hawaii and celebrate. The lost coin represented about a day's wages. So the woman spent more on the party than she got back. What woman wouldn't do this? Jesus asks. The answer is no woman we know would do such a thing. But God will. God will. Because with God, nothing is small. Nothing is worthless. Everything matters. No one gets lost. or stays lost forever. My friend who posted on Facebook wrote, 9/11 is a hard thing for one so young to understand, but the story started my 4-year-old thinking about the heroic things the first responders did and continue to do for people every day. Or as she said, then the firemen, police, nurses, and doctors came to help the people with the boo-boos. Friends, we all have our boo-boos. And there are times where we feel wounded, worthless, tired. We wonder, what's the use? We're lambs in the wild, lost coins in the corner. But it's at that moment we must remember the story. Stories of a crazy, shocking, lavishly loving God, Master Shepherd, sweeper of our souls, who actively seeks us out, wants to restore us, move our lostness to foundness in Him. All we like sheep have gone astray. We've turned every one of us to His own way. But God's glory is what we desire to see. In her presence,